Most people think of content and structure as the most important part of creating a speech. While that is vital, another major part is the delivery that you use when giving the speech. Now, one thing that we often think about when we talk about delivery is your body, but another major part is paralanguage, or the way you use your voice when you speak. For example, volume is a major part of how you convey emotion in a speech. You can raise your volume to be louder when trying to show intensity, and lower your volume to be quieter when trying to show subdued behavior, sadness, and such. So volume can be altered in order to additionally convey emotion. Pitch is another factor, and that's the highness or lowness of your voice. So how are you using that pitch in order to convey another emotion, or the same emotion as you were conveying during volume? In addition to the increasing in pitch, the highness to show excitement, or the lowness to show heaviness or sadness, you also want to consider pitch as a universal feature of your speech, how you speak in general. So right now, as I'm talking, I'm kind of going up a little bit and down a little bit when I'm speaking. And that shows a little bit of variation and keeps the speech more audibly entertaining. So it's not flat-lined or monotonous. So you want to watch doing a monotone style speech, because it can kind of zone out your audience, and then it doesn't matter whether your structure and your content is great, because your delivery is going to ruin all of that. So work on that pitch in order to create some variation. Smiling and showing enthusiasm and excitement for your topic is an easy way to do that. Rate is another factor here, and rate can be used in order to do the same thing that volume and pitch can be used for. Going more quickly allows for a more intense and excited and passionate tone, whereas slowing down shows a little bit more intensity on the mute side, a little sadness, heaviness to your tone. So varying your rate of speech in order to add a particular emotion to what you're saying can really help here. Another area that a lot of folks don't realize can be very impactful is stress. So emphasizing major words when you speak. If you look at these sentences here, you can see how emphasizing the underlined word can change the entire meaning of the sentence. For example, in number 3, you could say, I didn't say she stole the money. Or if you emphasize the word she, you change the entire meaning of the sentence. I didn't say she stole the money. That changes that sentence in order to say, hey, look, I didn't say it was her. I said it was somebody else. So stress can actually change the entire meaning of a sentence just by putting a little extra emphasis on a word. Now, in addition to that, when you use stress, you might find a really strong statistic or a major claim within your speech and use stress and pausing in order to add a level of intensity and emphasis to that particular statement. So for example, I could say 1 in 88 people are diagnosed with autism each year. Or I could stress and use pause with that sentence in order to add another layer of emotion. So instead of saying it straight like I just did, I could say 1 in 88 people are diagnosed with autism each year. So you can see how I sort of paused, but mostly emphasized certain words in order to add a level of intensity and show how important this particular statistic is. So using your voice can really change the nature of the speech. In addition to that is body communication. And there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. First and foremost is the way you dress, your personal appearance. If you're doing an informal speech, like an introduction or something like that in a classroom, that may not be a major issue. But if you're doing a formal speech, say some kind of informative or persuasive speech, you're very likely going to need to consider attire. So you may want to use the general rule of thumb that no jeans or sweats should be worn during formal speeches. I usually make the rule khakis or better, which means dress clothes, business casual or better. No formal attire, obviously, but that's the kind of thing we're looking for when we say dressing for a formal speech. You want to dress professionally. So keep that in mind if you're ever doing an informative or persuasive style speech. Movement and gestures is another major factor. Movement and gestures can be a major part of how you come across when you speak. Just try to be as natural as you can possibly be. Don't restrict your movement or your gestures. What that means is if there is a lectern where you are giving your speech, try not to stand behind it and grab it. That shows that you are very nervous and you are trying to cover yourself up with the lectern. So instead, sort of cock the lectern to the side a little bit and allow a part of your body to stand out from the lectern. Now, personally, I would say get rid of the lectern altogether, but that's not always an option, nor is it always best for somebody when they're speaking. So instead of getting rid of it, like I said, cock it to the side, put your notes up on that lectern, and step out just a bit so you're still sort of behind it, but your body is a little bit more visible and it seems less hiding. It's less of a hiding motion. You seem more involved in the speech. And then you can use your gestures more as well. And then finally, eye contact. Eye contact is important when you're giving a speech in order to make sure your audience knows that you are involving them. Now, you do not have to maintain eye contact with every person in your audience. Scan the heads of your audience, sort of look back and forth occasionally, maybe maintain a little bit more regular eye contact with that person in the audience that is smiling and nodding. You know, that person that makes you feel like what you're doing is going well. That might be your teacher, that might be a friend or a family member, that could just be a random classmate or audience member that is engaged in your speech. You may want to go back and forth to maintaining eye contact with that person. But at the very least, sort of scan the audience. So these are all major parts of any speech when you are delivering, and hopefully using some of these tactics and techniques will help your speech to come across more clearly and more enthusiastically.